everyone. This is TESOL Hub, Level 1, Lecture number 6, Classroom Management 2. And Classroom Management 2 will be divided into two parts. Today, we'll be going through Part 1. And before we start, we'll be revising what we mentioned in our previous video, as we talked about 10 tips for classroom management. Let's go through the content. Let's have a look. We'll be starting with the revision on the first lecture, and then we'll be talking about teacher talking time, giving clear instructions. In Part 2, we'll be focusing on setting up and running activities, monitoring, giving effective feedback. So today we'll be focusing on two topics, teacher talking time and giving clear instructions. In our previous lecture, we talked about the tips that are so important, and there are some of them that we'll be focusing on today in our two topics. The most important one of them, giving the instructions and using nonverbal cues. Moreover, engaging the students in the learning process and also implementing effective transitions. So I recommend reading the previous lecture's material and watching the video if you didn't watch. Let's start with today's topic. But before we start, we want to think about what does the teacher need to follow or to have a good classroom management. There are three adjectives that we need to describe the teacher using them if we're talking about classroom management. The teacher needs to be enthusiastic, passionate about the kids, engaging. So if you're engaging, your students will have fun during the session and they will not feel that this is so boring and we need this class to finish earlier and so on. Enthusiastic and passionate because all the positive feelings that you feel, you transfer them to your students. So those are very important adjectives to describe a teacher if we want to succeed in classroom management. And today we'll be talking on the first topic, which is teacher talk in time. And as we call it, TTT. Teacher talk in time, which is also known as TTT, how to avoid talking too much when teaching English. As teacher talk in time is important, but should be reduced. The potential problems with the teacher talk will be divided into two parts. How much or the quantity of the teacher talk, and the other part is the language level. So we will start with the quantity or how much. We all know that there is a balance to be had between the teacher talking time and the student talking time. So the acronym here, STT, stands for student talking time, and TTT for teacher talking time. So you know that learning language is a practical skill, exactly like driving, like swimming. So students need to practice to master the language. And if we want them to practice, we need to increase the student talking time and reduce the teacher talking time. The problem of increasing the teacher talking time often arises because of being nervous. So we will watch a video now. I want you to watch the video and then we'll be describing what was happening in this video with the teacher and what did the student feel.
In 1930, the Republican-controlled House of Representatives, in an effort to alleviate the effects of the, anyone? The Great Depression, passed the, anyone? A tariff bill, the Hawley-Smoot Tariff Act, which, anyone, raised or lowered? Raised tariffs in an effort to collect more revenue for the federal government. Did it work? Anyone? Anyone know the effects? It did not work, and the United States sank deeper into the Great Depression. Today, we have a similar debate over this. Anyone know what this is, class? Anyone? Anyone? Anyone seen this before? The Laffer curve. Anyone know what this says? It says that at this point on the revenue curve,
I think it's so
you will get
clear that it was a boring class. So if you just noticed that one of them was sleeping, another one didn't get anything, didn't understand what he's talking about, and the others, they just trying to figure out what is happening here. It's a boring class, and students didn't get the point. They didn't understand what he was saying, and he didn't even check their understanding using CCQs or whatever. Without discussion, without giving them the opportunity to think about something, or even he doesn't give them time to discuss things together. So when we increase teacher talking time, we reduce student engagement and participation, and we limit the opportunities for active learning. And there's lack of differentiation because you don't care about the different levels of students, and you don't care about their understanding as well. You reduce the feedback and the assessment because you cannot give feedback without having a discussion, without having student talk, or without giving them an activity to work together like pair work or group work, and you monitor and then you give feedback. So no feedback and no assessment when we increase the teacher talking time, or let's say the lecture mood. But when we reduce the teacher talking time, we increase students' engagement and participation. And we give them opportunities for active learning. And also we differentiate the instruction because we care about the different levels that we have in the classroom. And we give feedback and apply an assessment by giving them CCQs or asking them some CCQs, giving them activities to discuss together, like think, pair, share, like turn and talk. All these activities are very important in the classroom. So this is the solution for this problem. We will go through now some situations. Let's have a look at some situations and see why this is happening. So one of the teachers said that I hated when there's a silence in the class. If no one is speaking, I usually open my mouth. I figured that it is probably good for them to have some more listening practice anyway. So it means that this teacher feels nervous when everybody's silent and when no one is speaking. That's why the teacher is starting to talk just to reduce the feeling, or this feeling nervous, I mean. So this teacher feels that there's something wrong. So what do you think the solution for this problem? The solution for this problem, as we said before, give the students time to talk, like giving them some activities like turn and talk. Ask them a question and ask them to turn and talk together. Or give them the activity of think, pair, share. Give them a minute to think about something, then ask them to pair their answers or their thoughts together, and then they can share it with the whole class. So this is the solution for the first problem or the first situation. Situation number 2. Now I will just drop this off the board and then we will get on with the next exercise. Oh, where's the board rubber? Here. Oh yes, great. Right. I will give out these sheets. I wanted to put them on different colored paper, but there wasn't any in the cupboard, unfortunately. Still, it is not very important, so have a look at these. I think that this is so important to mention all what this teacher mentioned. This is what we call commentating. Commentating means that the teacher is trying to describe what is happening, or people tend to narrate what they're doing. And simply the solution, don't do it. Situation number 3. Let's read what was happening. Could I have your attention? Thanks. Right, if you're ready and it's not too much trouble, could you possibly just find your books in your bags and open them up to page 56, please? So, do you think that this is important to use this polite or more polite way of talking? No need at all. No need at all. So if somebody is observing your class, they will consider that too much teacher talk. So we will use the KISS rule of giving instructions or of talking, which is keep it short and simple. So more polite means using more words, using more language. So what do you think the solution here? Just tell them page 56, please, and demonstrate what you're doing with the students. So you need to avoid using too much words to give the students any instruction or to talk about anything. The second part of teacher talking time is the language level. So teachers need to grade their language according to the student's level. So if you're teaching young learners, it will be totally different from middle school and high school and so on, or for the advanced levels. So you need to grade your language according to the student's level. We'll be going through some situations. I want you to have a look for a minute on these lines and think about the language level here. Do you think that this is a logical one for beginners or young learners? Of course not. So what are the challenging parts? There are some challenging words. You cannot use challenging words with young learners or beginners. You need to keep it simple, short and simple as much as you can. Situation number 2. Look at the lines. Just jot down a few ideas that you've come up with, and then we will look over them together. Here you didn't use a challenging words, but you used phrasal verbs. And there are some problems with the students to understand phrasal verbs, especially if they are young learners. So you need to avoid using phrasal verbs with beginners and pre-intermediate. Situation number 3. And in this situation, we're not talking about the challenging words or lexes. We'll be talking about the structure. Look at the structure of these two sentences. And they think that it is easy for beginners or young learners to understand this structure? Of course not. If you hadn't started learning English, what other language would you have chosen? So look at the structure. And look at the next one. Had you not started learning English, what other language would you have chosen? So this is complicated for young learners and beginners. So we need to focus on the structure as well. Use simple structure. Look at situation number 3. If you were a pilot and your engines stopped, what would you do? So if you look at the verb here, stopped, they will think about the past. So it might be confusing for them. That's why we need to keep it simple. So how can we solve this? You will just say, you're a pilot, your engine stopped. What do you do? So here you used simple tense, which is easier to them to understand if they are beginners or young learners. So when we talk about the language level, we're not only talking about the vocabulary or the challenging lexes or vocabulary, we're also focusing on the grammar structure. Situation number 4. look at this line. The teacher is saying, you, last night, go out with who? So the teacher is trying to keep it simple, but this is not a natural one. It's not a normal way of speaking with the students. So it might be confusing. So speak a bit more slowly than normal, but not so slowly. Use vocabulary, simple vocabulary, use simple structure. Your learner needs a natural model. Now we'll be having some useful tips for you if we talk about the teacher talking time. So you need to plan what you want to say in advance, especially if you have TPs or you have demos or you have observation in the classroom. You need to plan your questions in advance or your instructions in advance, your ICQs, everything you're saying to your students, because sometimes when you feel nervous, you start to talk and you start commenting or mentioning what you're doing and so on. So you need to focus on these tips. Moreover, when you practice, remember that practice makes perfect. So you need to record yourself and listen to your questions, your instructions, your speaking, how much you speak after your lesson planning. So you need to follow the lesson plan and record yourself, then listen to yourself. It's good practice. To sum up, teacher talking time is important, but should be reduced. Replace teacher talking time with non-verbal cues that we mentioned in our previous lecture. A lot of teacher talking time is often just unnecessary echoing. It's exactly like commentating that we talked about. And we said that silence is gold when your students are working together. Now we'll be moving to the next part of our lecture, which is giving clear instructions. And in giving clear instructions, we'll be having a look at some terms that we need to focus on: ICQs, case principle, monitoring, clarification, visual aids. ICQs are instruction checking questions. And case principle, we said keep it short and simple. Monitoring means that you monitor your students while doing an activity or while answering a question or while having a practice. Clarification, it means that you clarify the instructions if somebody didn't get it. Visual aids, it means that you will use some pictures or sometimes you will use the board for the instructions. So giving clear instructions, will be having some tips for you. The first one, setting a time limit. So whenever you give your students an activity, you need to set a time limit. For example, you're going to have 5 minutes to finish this activity. And you will start turning on the stopwatch on the board if you have the smart board in your class or the monitor. So you can use it to turn on the stopwatch so your students can follow up with the time limit. Get 100% attention before you start. So you need to get their attention before you start giving them the instruction. Make sure that everybody is listening. Don't hand down material before instruction, because you know that whenever or as soon as you put the paper in their hands, they will start reading and they are not listening. And the last one, grade language, short and simple, as we mentioned before. So let's revise them again. We said setting a time limit, tell them how long they have to complete the activity. Make sure that everybody's listening before you start. Don't hand out material before instructions. And the last one, grade your language level. If we have low level students, so what are the instructions for low level? We need to use or to increase body language. So we need to demonstrate everything. While you're saying everything, you need to demonstrate, because you know that we need to speak in English all the time. While doing that, you can act what they're doing, you can demonstrate what they are doing. No challenging words or phrasal verbs whenever you give instructions to lower levels. Break things down into smaller steps. Don't use so much instruction or speak a lot while giving them the instruction. And you need to check their understanding to the instructions before you start your activity. Checking the understanding to your students, you'll be using ICQs, as I mentioned before, ICQs, instruction checking questions. Meaning of use confident student as demonstration. Let's say, let me give you an example. So if you tell your students, guys, you're gonna have 10 minutes to finish the activity, you'll be having it in pair work, and you will be answering the question 1, 2, and 3. You can bring one of the confident students in front of the class and start asking them. So ask them, hello dear, are you gonna do it in pairs or in groups or individual? So the student will answer you. Are we gonna answer all the questions or only question 1, 2, and 3? Question 1, 2, and 3, and so on. Now we'll be having examples for giving the instructions. And while giving the examples, you will judge if it is a good example of giving instruction or a bad one. So listen and answer. Think about it and answer. Let me say that I am the teacher and I'm giving now you the instructions. We've got a piece of paper. It is gonna get like a map on it, and there are few roads and a variety of kinds of facilities you find in a town. Okay, right? So what you do, you will each have one, and you need to work with a partner. I think it's gonna be better if you just turn your chair around, and then you can do that in a minute if you like. So the thing that you need to do is imagine that you're at your house at the top left hand corner, and you need to ask your partner about the directions like we were just practicing before. What do you think? Do you think it's a good way to give instructions to students? Of course not. You're absolutely right. And they cannot figure out the instruction in these sentences. So how can we do it in a proper way? The same example, but we will do it better. So you will start to stand in front of the class, in front of the students, and make sure that everybody's looking at you, everybody's listening, and hold the map in front of them, like the map that you can see now, and tell them, guys, we have a map, and this map, we have many places, as you see here in this picture. We'll be talking about the directions. So we will just mention how can we go to the church if we are in street number 2. Who can tell me? So are you gonna go straight ahead or go straight ahead and turn right, and so on? And students will answer you. Then you will give them another example. And after giving them the examples, you will ask them, guys, now you need to mention 4 places, the directions for 4 places on this map. You will discuss this with a partner, and you have 5 minutes to finish the activity. So how many places are you gonna mention? They will answer. How much time do you have to finish the activity? They will say. Are you gonna mention more than 4 places? They would say. So now you will check their understanding to an instruction. There are some things that you don't need to do whenever you give instruction. Don't ask, did you understand? And don't tell them what you have to do. Can you tell me what you have to do? Never ask your students, did you understand? Because it's really so classic and traditional. It's good to make sure that your students understand everything. But this question is not logical, because when you ask a student, did you understand? He would probably say, yes, I did, even if he didn't. So they think they understand what you're saying, or they just keep the conversation going without understanding, real understanding. So what will you do is using instruction checking questions to check the instructions, or to check their understanding to the instructions. It's not a good question. So 2 questions you cannot use while giving or checking the instructions. You cannot say, did you understand? And you cannot say, tell me what you have to do. But what if a particular group in your class do not understand the instructions? It doesn't matter at all. Just go to the group and repeat the instruction. So another great idea, if half of the class or more do not understand, so it means that you're going to repeat the instruction with the whole class. Why do you think that given instruction, clear instruction, is important to our classes? Of course, it increases the students' understanding and engagement, and it reduces frustration and confusion. It supports the differentiated instruction or diverse learners, and also it improves the classroom management. Moreover, it saves time, and it facilitates the independent work or the group work or whatever you have in the class. It facilitates everything. The conclusion for our lecture today, I want you to know some important points before we finish our lecture. The first one of them, never tell your students that there's something which is difficult or tricky they're going to answer. For example, don't say, I'm afraid it's a bit tricky or it's a bit difficult. Don't tell them it's difficult. This won't inspire confidence, and you need to improve their self-esteem and self-confidence. Motivate them to answer the question. Another thing that I want you to do, to use a normal way of talking. You don't have to use a very polite way to reduce your teacher talking time and to give a clear instruction, short instructions. It's really important. Another tip for you, which is reduce commentating. So don't tell the learners what you're doing, don't narrate your actions in the classroom, to reduce unnecessary words or unnecessary sentences. Short questions with short answers, just to make sure that everybody is on the right track. By implementing these strategies, teachers can ensure that their instructions are clear, concise, and easily understood by students, leading to more effective learning and task completion. So well-crafted instructions are foundational for student success and also engagement and efficient use of class time. So it saves time, as we mentioned. They enable students to learn effectively and demonstrate their true capabilities. So in our today's lecture, we focused on teacher talking time, the importance of reducing teacher talking time and increasing student talking time. And we talked about giving clear instructions and checking students' understanding to the instructions. In our next video, we'll be completing Classroom Management 2. And thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe and like the video and share it. I hope you enjoyed the lecture today, and wait for the quiz. See you.